A mother's love can be the fiercest, most enduring force in the world, but when that love is pushed aside, it can also become something unbreakably strong. I never thought I would be erased from my only child's life. At 63, after surviving widowhood years of struggle and decades of sacrifice, I thought I understood heartbreak. I was wrong. What I discovered in Texas nearly broke me, but it also forced me to remember that strength isn't always quiet endurance. Sometimes it's fighting back. The heat hit me like a furnace when I stepped off the plane in Dallas. My palms trembled as I opened my phone, fumbling for the rideshare app. This trip had been months in the making. Tomorrow was Miles's 35th birthday, and I wanted to surprise him. It had been more than 10 years since I'd flown anywhere, saving every dollar from my part-time library job to afford the ticket. My suitcase was light, but my heart was heavy with the weight of hope. I carried a tin of chocolate chip cookies, the ones my mother had taught me to bake, the ones that had soothed Miles's scraped knees and broken hearts when he was small. Those cookies had been my way of saying without words that love remained no matter how far apart we had grown. The Uber driver was cheerful, pointing out Austin's landmarks as though I were a tourist. I barely heard him. My thoughts spun with memories of Sunday pancake breakfasts, laughter echoing through our small Kansas home the nights when Miles, still a boy, had promised me he would always take care of me. That boy had grown into a successful man, building his own consulting business, sending Christmas cards with neat return labels. I thought we still had a bond that nothing could undo. When the car pulled up to his sleek apartment complex, pride swelled in my chest. My boy had made it. The landscaping was neat, the balconies polished, the kind of place that whispered success. I climbed to the second floor, repeating the address in my head, 2B. My hand was raised to knock when I saw it, a note taped to the door, elegant handwriting that wasn't my son's. Honeymoon. Do not disturb. The words struck like a hammer. My knees weakened, and I sank onto a bench in the hallway, my bag slipping, the tin of cookies spilling open. Miles was married without me, married without a word. 800 people, I would later learn, had been invited to the celebration. His mother, who had raised him alone after his father died, was not one of them. I gathered the broken cookies with shaking hands, tears blurring my vision. Each crumb was another piece of me scattered across the cold concrete. Had he truly stood at an altar, pledging his life to someone, while I sat 3 states away, unaware? The neighbor peeked out pity in her eyes. I forced a brittle smile. Just dropping something off for my son. But inside, I was hollow. I wasn't forgotten. I had been deliberately excluded, erased. 3 hours later, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the parking lot, I saw them. Miles's burgundy Honda pulled in. His laughter rang through the air, familiar yet foreign when shared with the beautiful young woman at his side. She was all polish, long blonde hair, designer sunglasses, confidence dripping from her every step. When I called out his name, he froze, startled. "Mom?" he said, as though unsure I was real. The woman introduced herself with a cold smile. "I'm Bellamy." And with every honey-dipped word that followed, I understood she was not only his wife, but his gatekeeper. I explained I had come for his birthday. I mentioned the note. Miles stammered, running a nervous hand through his hair. They had just returned from Cabo, he said. Bellamy's voice cut in sharper. It was divine. 5 stars, only the most important people were at our wedding. 800 of them. Her smile widened, as if she were testing how deep she could drive the knife. "I'm sure you understand." My son remained silent, eyes fixed anywhere but on me. "I don't understand," I whispered. "How does a mother who raised him alone for 23 years not count as important?" Bellamy's laugh was brittle glass. "Oh, honey, Miles has told me all about his childhood, about how hard it was, how much he had to take on because you couldn't manage. He practically had to raise himself. Each word was a slap. I looked to Miles, begging for him to correct her, to defend me. He said nothing. Instead, Bellamy linked her arm through his and announced they had dinner reservations. "We need our space?" she added sweetly, suggesting I try a very affordable motel nearby. My son, my only child, stood silent while his wife erased me. I walked away with humiliation burning in my chest. But that night, sitting in a diner across from his building, nursing cup after cup of coffee, the sting of betrayal hardened into something sharper. I opened my banking app habit from years of scraping by. That's when I remembered the business account I had co-signed for Miles years earlier to help him start his company. I had forgotten my name was still there, still giving me rights. The balance was 6 figures, with recent withdrawals that screamed wedding expenses and luxury honeymoon. All funded from an account that existed because of me. My finger hovered over the freeze account option. This wasn't only about money. This was about respect. About reclaiming the voice that Bellamy had tried to silence. I thought of her smug laugh, her dismissive words. I thought of my son's silence, his shame at acknowledging me. And then I tapped confirm. The account froze instantly, funds locked, their perfect bubble punctured. For the first time since I arrived in Texas, I felt power. The next morning, Miles's frantic calls began at 7:47 a.m. By the 6th missed call, I ordered another slice of apple pie and let the phone buzz. When the bank finally called to verify, I confirmed calmly yes, I had frozen the account. Because sometimes a mother has to remind her child and his new wife that love is not weakness and sacrifice is not forgettable. By 8:30 a.m., the bank connected Miles to me on a conference line. His voice was taut with panic, the way it used to sound when teenage trouble revealed itself an hour past curfew. "Mom, please. They say you froze my business account." I kept my tone even. "I did." He sputtered about payroll and contractors, about obligations and timing, as if timing were not the very thing that had been weaponized against me. "I flew here for your birthday," I said softly. "I found the word honeymoon on your door before I even found your face. You used an account I built with you to fund a wedding that erased me." The line went quiet, and in that breathless silence, I felt something recalibrate. "We can talk," he said, finally defeated. "1 hour, the diner across from your building." Miles was not the first to arrive. At 9:25 a.m., Bellamy stormed in on clicking heels and a chill of expensive perfume. She slid into the booth opposite me without asking, fury trembling under her varnished poise. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hissed. I folded my newspaper and motioned toward the menu. "The pancakes are excellent," I said. "You should try them." Color streaked her cheeks. "You froze his account because you're jealous, because his life no longer revolves around you." She said jealous like it was a shameful secret, not a human ache. I kept my voice low. I exercised my legal rights as a co-signer. And I did it because I refused to be used and discarded. She smirked, rehearsed, and radiant. "Legal rights. You're blackmailing your son." I leaned in until our reflections met in the chrome napkin dispenser. "Pathetic," I murmured, trying the word she had offered me hours earlier, is isolating a man from the woman who raised him, then calling it privacy. She flinched, then recovered. Miles made his own choices. "Did he?" I asked. "Or did you explain to him patiently and often that love from a mother is a threat to a wife?" Her mask slipped for a heartbeat. "You are a threat," she snapped. "You're needy. He had to parent you." I let the insult pass through me. "Do you even know our history?" I asked. "Did he tell you how many double shifts I worked so he could grow up in a home where the lights stayed on? Did he tell you I sold my wedding ring so he could have a car that started on cold mornings, or that I turned down better jobs in other cities so he could finish high school with his friends. Silence spread across her face like frost. And one more thing I added, pulling up my banking app. For 5 years, I have sent him $500 every month. That is $60,000 sacrificed from the budget of a widow who stocks shelves and checks out library books. I showed her the screen with the scheduled transfers, a ledger of love Bellamy had never thought to imagine. She stared, color draining. He never said. There's a lot he never said, I replied gently. To you, and lately to me. Her chin lifted in defiance. You think money wins? I think patterns do, I said. I read last night, public records fight secrecy with daylight. 2 years ago, you divorced an older man with money. Another quick romance. Another family pushed aside. She recoiled and stood abruptly, chair legs screeching. You're a lonely, bitter woman, she spat. Unfreeze the accounts by this afternoon or you'll never see Miles again. I gave her the same smile I had given rude customers when I was young and too tired to be angry. Honey, you already tried that. She fled just as Miles came in, almost colliding with her at the door. He looked as if sleep had been taken away from him by force, shoulders slumped, hair-mussed eyes rimmed with regret. He slid into the booth and covered his face with his hands. Mom, he said, voice cracked. I don't know how we got here. Tell me, I said, without her words in your mouth. He talked, halting at first, then faster, as if the truth were rushing to fill the spaces where pretense had been. The engagement had been fast, the planning entirely hers. The decision to keep me out, pitched as a kindness to spare me stress and spare them outside pressure. He repeated the phrase like it tasted wrong now that he heard himself say it. She showed me texts from you, he added weakly. Long messages to her. Begging to be involved. Asking invasive questions. I met his eyes and held them. I have never had Bellamy's number, I said. I don't even know her last name. The color drained from his face. She had screenshots, he whispered. Then have her send them. He called, put her on speaker, demanded the messages. She refused. She claimed she had deleted them to protect her peace. The lie sat between us, heavy as a stone. Miles hung up and stared at the Formica as if it could tell him who he had become. She lied, he said at last, the words both confession and release. She lied about you, probably about more. His hands shook. Mom, I am so sorry. I reached across the table and took those work-roughened fingers I had bandaged 100 times when he was a boy. You were groomed by a professional, I said. It happens to strong men, too. He nodded, eyes bright. What do you want? He asked. From me. From this. Respect, I said. A real conversation. Boundaries that mean something. And for you to look at the pattern and decide whether you want a marriage built on isolation and fear, or a life built on truth. We agreed on 3 things before we stood. I would unfreeze his accounts at once employees did not deserve to be collateral. He would have a real talk with Bellamy alone with his own mind. And we would rebuild what we had slowly, with calls that last longer than apologies, and with Sunday dinners when work allowed. I released the funds from my phone while we walked toward the door, the little green confirmation flashing like a truce flag. Thank you, he said. This was never about money, I told him. It was about the cost of silence. He called that evening at 6:30 p.m., his voice thin. Mom Bellamy's in the hospital, he said. There's bleeding. They think it might be a miscarriage. I felt guilt coil in my stomach, the way it does when the storm passes over the house, and you count the dents in the roof, wondering which nail you loosened. Is she stable? I asked. Yes, he said. They've said the baby looks okay, but she has to stay in bed a week. She says it's the stress. She says it's our fault. She wants me to cut contact with you. I stood at the motel window, the neon humming. Miles, I said, careful. Grief and fear are real, but manipulation turns every event into a weapon. Don't let her rewrite today into a villain's tale. Ask the doctor what causes what. Then ask yourself who benefits when you're cut off from the people who love you. He exhaled long and shaky. I hear you, he said. I don't know what I'll do. You do, I said softly. Deep down you do. The following morning, his voice on the phone carried a new steadiness. Mom? I went through her phone while she slept, he confessed. I know it was wrong, but I needed to see. My chest tightened, and his words poured out fast and relentless like water breaking through a dam. There were no deleted texts from me, but there were threads to her friends about managing the Miles situation. Screenshots of his banking apps, detailed notes about my Facebook page, his father's death, even the property I mortgaged to put him through college. She studied us, Mom, like we were a project. His voice broke. And worse, she's been in contact with her ex-husband, the one she divorced 2 years ago. He was coaching her. Same tactics. He warned her how to cut me off from my family. She's done this before. The floor seemed to tilt under me. Bellamy wasn't just insecure or manipulative, she was practiced. A woman who ran the same playbook, refining it with each target. What are you going to do? I asked. His answer came fast, without hesitation. I already left. While she was still in the hospital, I packed my things, grabbed the documents, the laptop, everything. I'm in a hotel. I'm filing for divorce. His voice steadied conviction settling into its bones. If the baby is mine, I'll be a father. But I won't be a husband to a liar. 2 weeks later, I was back in Kansas staring out my kitchen window at the autumn fields when his call came. Bellamy had tried everything. Tears, threats, begging, promises. She claimed stress would harm the baby, that separation was cruelty. None of it worked. The paternity test came back, he said, one evening, voice weary but resolute. It's not mine. It's her ex-husband's. I sat down, gripping the table as relief mingled with sorrow. Relief that my son was free from her web. Sorrow that he had been so entangled in it. How do you feel? I asked. He sighed. Guilty that I'm relieved, but relieved all the same. I can walk away clean. Months passed. Miles returned to Kansas, not to my house, but near enough that Sunday dinners became our ritual again. Sometimes I cooked, sometimes he did. Sometimes we ordered pizza and watched old movies until midnight. It wasn't the old bond of mother and child. It was something sturdier, the friendship of two adults who had walked through fire separately, but emerged side by side. He rebuilt his consulting firm piece by piece, stronger now that his finances and his loyalty were not being siphoned away. One evening, he brought someone new to dinner. Sarah, a schoolteacher from the nearby town. She was genuine, kind, with laugh lines around her eyes and the ease of someone who had nothing to hide. While we washed dishes after she looked at me and said simply, "You raised a good man, Colleen. He talks about you with respect and gratitude." My throat tightened. Across the kitchen, Miles dried plates and gave me a look that carried more than words. Apology, love, and the kind of recognition I had thought I had lost forever. At night, sometimes I still thought of Bellamy. I wondered if she had circled back to her ex, or if she was hunting for her next husband, another man to mold and control. I wondered if she ever felt regret, or if she was capable of it. But mostly, I pitied her. Because all her scheming, all her careful scripts and strategies had left her with nothing real. Not a family, not trust, not love. As for me, I discovered something unexpected. For decades, I thought strength meant working 3 jobs, sacrificing my future, keeping quiet, so no one labeled me bitter. But Texas taught me that sometimes strength is drawing a line, saying no, freezing an account, reminding the people you love that sacrifice deserves respect, not erasure. Miles and I had bent under pressure, but we hadn't broken. True family doesn't break. It waits patient and steady until love can flow back through the cracks. So, I'll ask you this. What would you have done if you were me? Would you have walked away quietly or fought for the truth, even if it meant breaking your son's heart to mend it? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know how far this story travels. How many of you see pieces of your own lives in mine? And if you felt this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need the reminder that love and respect go hand in hand.